Welcome to Contractor Safety Training for Baer's Berkeley Campus, Health and Safety, Environmental and Security. Upon completion of this training, you will be familiar with the following: Baer Berkeley Contractor Policy, the definition of GMP and what GMP means to you, Berkeley Site Safety Rules, where to go and what to do in case of emergency, site hazard communication and awareness, and site safety programs. Baer Berkeley Contractor Policy. All contracted organizations must have a written safety policy which meets or exceeds Baer safety standards. All Baer contractors must comply with their organization's safety policy. All Baer contractors must comply with Baer's specific safety policy and rules. And if you have any questions, contact your Baer host or sponsor. Good manufacturing practices, or GMPs. What is a GMP? Regulatory agencies representing each country Baer does business with, including the FDA and the USA, sets legally binding policies for the manufacturing and sale of drug products. These policies are called Good Manufacturing Policies, or GMPs. We follow standard operating procedures, SOPs, written to comply with the requirements of the GMPs, covering the major regulatory areas: aseptic processing, cleanroom operations, and gowning, decontamination, and personal protective equipment. Training and personnel, process and test parameters, equipment use and maintenance, data recording and verification. It is critical that we follow these procedures at all times. Patient safety depends on it. If you are working in GMP areas, you will be required to complete training on all relevant SOPs and/or other documentations relating to the work. Ask your buyer, host, or sponsor, or area trainer what training is required. Be sure to complete all required training before performing any work. Some common requirements include entering production facilities or laboratories, record data on controlled records, make logbook entries, entering gowned areas, entering Class A and B areas, and the various trainings that go along with each of those. Never perform any GMP-related task without the required training. GMPs and production areas. Humans are the #1 source of contamination. Production facilities are designed to tightly control contamination. To ensure product quality and patient safety, you must complete all required training before entering areas where product is manufactured and tested. You may have to pass through airlocks and gown in certain areas. Equipment may require special or extra training before entering the facility. Items brought into the facility do not enter the same way as personnel. You must know and follow the applicable procedures. Never enter any area with restricted access unless you are fully trained to do so or are escorted by someone who is trained. Never follow someone into a building that you don't already have access to by piggybacking, entering a door that they have opened for you. Ask your buyer, host, or sponsor if you have any questions about your work area. OHSAS 18001 is an international standard describing specifications for an occupational health and safety (OH&S) management system. OHSAS 18001 certification confirms that the OH&S management system is effective at identifying and mitigating safety risks. Deltleth Kem, VP of Engineering, from our Supply Center leadership team, has the ultimate responsibility for OH&S, as well as the OH&S management system at the Berkeley site. The OHSAS 18001 standard is based on the similar ISO 14001 environmental structures. The Berkeley site has been ISO 14001 certified since 2000. Key HSES information everyone should know. You can utilize the HSES website to familiar yourself with our site mission statement and other HSES programs. To access, you will need to be on the buyer network. One of the formal OHSAS 18001 requirements is for all employees to identify and mitigate hazards by being aware of and using all of our safety systems. These include incident reporting and investigation, trip inspections, job safety analysis, or JSAs, SEA cards, For any HSES related questions, you can reach us by dialing 4377 from any internal phone. Berkeley Site Rules. 1 of 5. Address unsafe behaviors or conditions. If needed, contact your buyer, host, or sponsor. There are no reprisals for expressing concern, suggestion, or complaint about health, safety, environmental, and security matters. Running is prohibited everywhere on site. Keep your eyes on your path at all times while walking. Never text or view your phone while walking. Should you need to use your phone or any other device while on site, you must stop first. Always hold the handrail when ascending or descending stairs. Never carry so many items you are unable to see the handrail. Horseplay, fighting, and practical jokes are prohibited. Practice good housekeeping. Keep all areas clean and clear of debris. Contractors reporting to work in any condition that affects the safety of others on site or the research will not be allowed to work. The use of tobacco products or any other device that generates secondhand smoke, such as an e-cigarette, are forbidden while on site. Disabling safety devices is prohibited. Forklifts have the right-of-way over all vehicles and pedestrians. Vision of the forklift driver may be blocked by load, and sudden stops could cause the load to drop. Maximum speed limit is 10 miles per hour. In high pedestrian zones, narrow passageways, or in blind corners, the speed limit is 5 miles per hour. You must display your buyer ID badge at all times while on site. Deny access or alert security if you witness anyone entering the site without a badge. Be aware of others trying to piggyback behind you. Firearms and explosives are forbidden on site. Do not pour anything down drains without first making sure it is permissible under the Berkeley Site's wastewater discharge permit. Contact HSES or your bearer, host, or sponsor for more information. Discharges to storm drains are prohibited. Do not store chemicals near storm drains for projects in case they leak or are damaged by accident. Make certain any containerized waste is properly labeled and stored. Bring copies of safety data sheets for any hazardous materials you bring with you on site. Clean up any spilled materials promptly and dispose of the waste appropriately. Contact HSES 4377 from any phone or 510-705-4377 if you have removed any items from laboratory spill kits so that the kits can be restocked. When possible, try to minimize the amount of dust and noise around the work site. All personal protective equipment must be removed and clothing dusted off prior to entering a common area on site, like a bathroom, a break room, office area, etc. Contractors are not to handle hazardous materials or hazardous waste in any capacity unless they are trained and authorized to do so. If you have a question, contact Jeff Bowman, Site Environmental, at 4870 from a campus phone or 510-707-4870. In the event of an illness or injury, you must notify your bearer, host, or sponsor and your employer in the event of any injury or illness. In the event of a medical emergency, dial 6666 from campus phone or 510-707-6666 on your cell phone to reach security. Give your name, location, and the nature of the emergency. Emergency response teams will respond and manage the incident. Occupational health can only provide first aid for an acute or urgent injury. Emergency procedures. While on the Berkeley site, you will need to know emergency exits, location of stairs, fire extinguishers, phones, fire alarms, emergency evacuation area, first aid kits, must have an evacuation map, need to know the location of the safety showers and the eye wash stations. You'll need to know how to use personal protective equipment properly, obtain safety data sheets, contact your sponsor, exit your work area safely in case of emergency, get to the emergency evacuation area as shown on the emergency evacuation map. Emergency information overview. CalOSHA standards require employers to maintain plans and alternatives for dealing with emergency conditions. The Integrated Contingency Plan, ICP, the Emergency Response Plan, ERP, and the Hazardous Materials Business Plan, HMBP, are intended to provide functional emergency response for Bayer Corporation in Berkeley, California, in the event of any foreseeable emergency situation. For more information, request a copy of these documents by calling HESS or 4377, request M-000-HS-346 for the Integrated Contingency Plan, and request S-000-HS-004 Emergency Response Plan. Emergency Response Team responds to medical emergency, injury or illness, chemical spill control and cleanup, building evacuation, fire control, heavy search and rescue, and training. For more information, contact HESS again at 4377 by any campus phone or 510-705-4377 on your cell phone. In the event of an evacuation, remain calm and do not run. Only shut down equipment and machinery if it is absolutely essential and you can do so safely. Exit the building using the safest and quickest route. Do not take time to gather personal belongings. Do not use elevators. If you are in a production area, do not degown prior to evacuating and exit through the gowning area so as not to break containment if it can be done safely. Report to your designated evacuation assembly area or the one closest to the area you are working if you are outside. Report to your floor warden, who will take your name down so that your buyer, host, or sponsor can locate you. Remain in the evacuation assembly area until otherwise directed. Earthquakes. If you are inside, drop, cover, and hold. Take cover under a desk, a table or doorway, or sit or stand against a wall. Hold the desk, table, or doorway until the shaking stops. After the shaking stops, do not use open flames or operate electrical equipment. Evacuate the building and report to your evacuation assembly area. If you are outside, do not attempt to enter any buildings. Move clear of buildings, pipe racks, and utility poles. Find an open area and drop, cover, and hold. After the shaking stops, watch for falling glass, wires, poles, and other debris. Report to your evacuation assembly area. Hazardous spills. In case of a hazardous material spill, evacuate the immediate area of the spill. Call 6666 from a campus phone or 510-705-6666 from the external phones or your cell phone if you need assistance cleaning up a chemical, either because the volume is too great or the nature of the hazard is too severe, and report your name, the nature and location of the spill, the need for medical assistance if necessary. Isolate the spill area and deny access to anyone else. Provide information and assist the emergency response team upon their arrival. Remember, do not attempt to clean up spills unless you are properly trained and equipped. Do not let any material go down the drain. Ammonia emergency. In the event of an ammonia leak from the central utilities cooling facilities, the siren will sound from the roof of B62. If the ammonia level outside the buildings are higher than we want people to be exposed to, shelter in a building, shut all doors and windows, turn off the thermostat if available, and wait for further instructions from the emergency response team. Note, the siren is a loud, continuous well that slowly oscillates between low and high pitch. The siren is tested at 12 o'clock noon the first Wednesday of every month. Fire or explosion. In case of a fire or explosion, immediately evacuate the building using designated evacuation routes. Do not use the elevators. Use the stairs. Activate any fire alarms as you evacuate. Assist or remove injured employees if you can do so safely. Report to your evacuation assembly area. From a safe location, dial 510-705-6666 to report the fire or explosion. Remain in the evacuation assembly area until directed otherwise. Be aware of any signage communicating hazards in your work area. Do not perform work if you're not properly trained or do not have sufficient personal protective equipment. You have the right to know. SDS or safety data sheets for chemicals used at Berkeley site are available in each department, a hard copy binder, or on the HSES website. Please contact your Bayer host or sponsor if you need a copy of any SDS. If hazardous materials are brought on site, contractors will make the SDS available to the buyer, host, or sponsor upon request. Be aware of any signage communicating hazards in your work area. Do not perform work if you are not properly trained or do not have sufficient PPE. The blue, red, yellow, and white hazard warnings are typically found on material product boxes or containers in diamond-shaped markings. Understanding pictograms. The pictogram is a black symbol shown on a white background and surrounded by a red diamond-shaped border. Chemicals meeting the classification criteria for a specific hazard class and/or category must have the corresponding pictogram printed on the label. The broad hazard category is in bold. A fire with a circle under it is oxidizers. Fish in a tree, environmental toxicity. Test tubes that show reaction with materials or skin is corrosiveness. A picture of something blowing up is explosives. Skull and crossbones means it's acutely toxic. A cylinder, or it looks almost like a rolling pin, gases under pressure. A fire with just flame is something that is flammable or will burn. An exclamation point, irritant acute toxicity. This will affect your skin, might make you drowsy, or affect your respiratory tract. And carcinogen has a red diamond with a person what looks like a starfish on their chest. Yellow and red tape. Use red plastic tape marked danger to warn of dangerous locations. Red plastic tape will be stop, danger, and/or do not enter. This must be accompanied by a sign that lists the type of hazard and how to avoid it. The person in charge of the area must also provide contact information and provide approval for other personnel requiring entry. Personnel must not cross over or under a red barrier tape without proper authorization. Yellow tape. Use yellow plastic tape marked caution to identify hazardous locations where caution is needed. Using yellow plastic tape does not prevent employees from entering the area, but it does warn them of a hazardous condition. Other considerations: both red and yellow tape must be used temporarily and be removed when the hazard has been eliminated. Permanent hazards, high voltage, biosafety, lasers, noisy areas, asbestos work areas, should be marked with signage rather than temporary barrier tape. Site safety programs and safe work practices. Ergonomics, the study of the relationship between the worker, the equipment you use, and the task you perform. The goal of economics is to work safely and efficiently and to be sure that they fit the job to you. If you have an ergonomics concern or discomfort, you must notify your bearer, host, or sponsor. The Ergo hotline is ERGO or 3746. For more information, refer to M-000-HS-315 Ergonomics Management Process. Personal protective equipment. What type are you required to wear on the job? If you have any questions about the proper use of PPE for a task, ask the area supervisor or your bearer, host, sponsor. PPE is any specialized clothing or equipment designed to provide protection against one or more safety hazards, much like our disposable coveralls and respirators. Obey all signage in your work area. Open-toed shoes are not allowed in laboratory and manufacturing areas. Some areas may require steel-toed shoes. Inspect and maintain your PPE. For processes requiring respiratory protection, use a respirator only if you have been medically cleared, you have completed the annual training, and you have been fit tested. Some areas on site have noise levels above 85 decibels. Be sure to obey hearing protection signage on site. Confined space. The confined space is large enough and so configured that an employee can enter and perform assigned work. It has limited or restricted means for entry and exit, and it is not designed for continuous employee occupation. In order to enter a confined space, you must obtain a confined space permit. Do not enter an area labeled as a confined space unless you are trained and authorized to do so. For more information, request a copy of this document by calling HESS at 4377 and request M-000-HS-308 confined space entry. Elevated work and fall protection. Do not perform any elevated work, scaffolds, telescoping work platforms, outriggers, aerial scissor lifts, ladders, unless you are properly trained and authorized. Walking or working under a raised or suspended load is prohibited. Inspect all ladders before use and never use a defective ladder. Make sure you have all necessary fall protection equipment prior to the start of work and you are trained on how to use the equipment correctly. If you are working 4 feet or more above ground, fall protection is required. Machine guarding. Machine guarding is required for any piece of equipment or machinery that could potentially cause a laceration, a pinch, a crush, a contusion, or a burn injury. Never bypass machine guarding unless the equipment is properly de-energized, including a lockout-tagout program. Only the authorized employee who placed the lockout-tagout device on the equipment may remove it. Inspect equipment at workstations before use and report any loose, broken, malfunctioning, or missing machine guards. Do not wear loose-fitting clothing, rings, or jewelry while operating machinery. For more information, request a copy of this document by calling 4377 and ask for S-000-HS-026 machine guarding. Line breaking. A line opening permit needs to be completed before any line or pipe which contains or has contained a hazardous or pressurized material is disassembled. Examples: flammable, combustible, toxic, corrosive, biohazard, steam, compressed air, hot condensate, or nitrogen. You need to know the potential hazards, the required PPE, what was the last material in the pipeline, and how to relieve the pressure. For more information, refer to S-000-HS-018 process or utility line and equipment opening. Electrical safety. Because electrical systems are found everywhere on our site and generally considered to be very reliable, the risk associated with their operation or even working in their vicinity can be underestimated. In the U.S., electrical incidents are the 5th leading cause of occupational fatalities. Most electrical injuries and death occur at low voltage, 120 volts, that can be found in every part of the plant. When electricity-related recordable injuries occur, they are 3 times more likely to be fatal when compared to the average. Electrical hazards exist both in the industrial environments as well in office and open spaces. All employees are responsible for recognizing, avoiding, and reporting hazards they encounter. When in office areas, immediately take power cords that have frayed or damaged parts out of use and put in a Z1 notification to have them properly disposed of. Never use extension cords for long-term use and always be aware of tripping hazards. In production areas, be aware that many electrical devices are often live and should be considered a hazard. Never use any area near electrical equipment for storage. Stay out of electrical rooms whenever possible. Seek advanced training if you need access or find a qualified worker to escort you. When working around any electrical equipment, be aware that airborne dust is a risk for electrical failure. Do not use compressed air near electrical equipment. When using a vacuum, make sure it has a particulate filter, usually a HEPA filter. Use lint-free cloths to clean up small areas. Use common sense. Avoid liquid contact with any electrical equipment. If you see damaged or unsafe equipment, contact your bearer host or sponsor or HSES and remove it from service if it can be done safely. This section of the training is intended to help raise awareness of electrical hazards. If you need to enter an electrical area or do electrical work as part of your job, you need to be trained. The following additional courses are part of our electrical safety policy and are offered to affected employees as needed: electrical awareness, operation of electrical devices, electrical testing, energized, electrical repairs, energized, medium voltage activities, and energized work permit authorizers. Ask your bearer host or sponsor or HSES representative which courses you may need based on your level of risk, depending on what task we are performing. For more information, see S-000-HS-020 Electrical Safety Program. Powered industrial trucks. A powered industrial truck is any specialized industrial vehicle powered by electric motors or internal combustion engines. Do not attempt to operate unless you are licensed to do so. Licensing requirements include completing classroom and practical training. Bloodborne pathogens or biosafety awareness. Bloodborne pathogens are disease-causing microorganisms, viruses, or bacteria in human blood or bodily fluid. If an exposure incident occurs, report the incident to your Bayer host contract sponsor and your employer immediately. Attempt to rinse, wash, and/or disinfect the exposed area using water, saline, soap and water, chlorhexidine as appropriate for the exposed area. In lab or production areas, before working with biological hazards, you must complete a BBP training, bloodborne pathogens training. If you are a supervised contractor, the BBP training is offered online in Bayer's learning management system. If you are a service provider, the training must be provided by your employer. Do not enter areas where biohazard signs are posted unless you have been trained. Notice the biohazard sign in the middle picture below. Supervised contractor is a contractor who is under the direct day-to-day supervision of Bayer employees. According to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, day-to-day supervision occurs when, in addition to specifying the output, product, or result to be accomplished by the person's work, the employer supervises the details, means, methods, and processes by which the work is to be accomplished. A service provider is a contractor who provides services or expertise to Bayer employees and is not directly supervised by Bayer. Hot work and welding. Cutting, welding, brazing, grinding, torch soldering, and use of a barbecue on-site are examples of hot work. All hot work activities require the assistance of a hot work permit by an authorized personnel. Consult Bayer host or sponsor for appropriate on-site procedures. Hot work shall only be performed by trained and authorized personnel. Please contact site security at 5059 by a campus phone or 510-707-5059 on your cell phone prior to any maintenance, repair, construction work that requires hot work or may generate dust, vapor clouds, or steam. Asbestos awareness. Until the mid-1980s, asbestos was used for insulation, fireproofing, and soundproofing until it was found to cause lung disease. Look for and obey any signage warning of asbestos exposure. If you encounter any potential asbestos-containing material, notify your Bayer host or sponsor and HSES. Do not disturb or attempt to clean up if you are not properly trained. Janus crews are properly trained to handle asbestos. We do not need to make this notification during our project unless we run into a material we are not expecting. Laser safety. LASER is an acronym for light amplification and stimulated emission of radiation. Lasers can harm the skin via photochemical or thermal burns. Lasers can cause severe eye injuries resulting in permanent vision loss. Do not enter areas or operate the equipment where you see laser signs posted unless you have been properly trained on laser safety. Lead awareness. Lead is a heavy, soft, malleable metal. Lead has many uses in the construction industry. The main concern today is lead-based paints. If inhaled or ingested, lead will become stored in your body and can cause brain and central nervous system impairment. You prevent yourself by not ingesting anything with lead, including drinking or eating after your hands have been contaminated, washing hands and face before eating, drinking, smoking, or applying cosmetics, avoiding the above-mentioned activities in lead work areas, prevent inhalation by keeping dust levels down while we're working, and use respirators when other controls are not adequate. Respirators will protect you from both ingestion and respiration of lead. Hoist safety. A hoist is an apparatus for raising or lowering a load by the application of a pulling force. Supervisors will train employees on specific hoists in their area. Do not operate a hoist unless you have been trained to do so. Operators should inspect systems daily and report any issues to their supervisor. Plant maintenance or engineering will conduct preventative maintenance and periodic inspections. HSES will approve all new system installations. Assessment. Per Bayer requirements, to complete your training, you must answer all questions on this assessment correctly. Review. Which of the following is not true about the proper use of red and yellow danger and caution plastic tapes at Bayer's Berkeley site? Personnel must not cross over or under a red barrier tape without proper authorization. That is true. Red plastic tape represents stop, danger, and/or do not enter. That is true. Yellow plastic tape does not prevent employees from entering an area. That is true. Red and yellow plastic tapes can be used permanently even after the hazard has been eliminated. That is not true. Red and yellow plastic tapes must be removed as soon as the hazard is eliminated. If you're going to perform hot work activities, you should consult Bearer Post sponsor for appropriate on-site procedures, be trained to perform the work, request for a hot work permit from site security at 5059 or 510-705-5059, or all of the above. Correct answer is all of the above. What is the buyer requirement on fall protection? Harnesses, railings, buckets. Fall protection is required when you work 4 feet or more above the ground. That is correct. Correct answer, again, the first one, fall protection is required when you work 4 feet or more above the ground. If a piece of equipment or container has a biohazard side, 3 broken circles with a solid circle in the center that intersects all 3 circles, the equipment or container contains biohazardous material. If you touch the equipment or container, you will become radioactive. The piece of equipment or container has been used with or contains radioactive material. All of the above. The correct answer here is the equipment or container contains biohazardous materials. Radioactive signage is similar, but is more linear triangles than circles. Disease-causing microorganisms, viruses, or bacteria found in human blood or bodily fluid are called bloodborne pathogens. This is true. It is okay to bypass machine guarding as long as you are not wearing loose-fitting clothing or jewelry. This is false. If you are not familiar with the signage posted in your work area, you should continue working, just be extra careful. This is false. Which of the following should have chemical hazardous materials identification systems labels? Only chemicals that are hazardous to your health, only chemicals that are dangerous for children, or all chemicals? Correct answer, all chemicals. Who's allowed to dump liquid down a storm drain? Bearer employees only, Bearer employees and contractors, or nobody? Correct answer, nobody. Which of the following is not true about GMP? GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practice. Equipment may require special or extra cleaning before entering the GMP facilities. Items brought into the facilities enter the same way as personnel. If you are working in GMP areas, you are required to complete training on all relevant SOPs and/or other documentation related to the work. We're looking for the thing that is incorrect, and the incorrect answer or correct answer, or the way the question is asked, items brought into the facilities enter the same way as personnel. Items and personnel come in through different routes. Time to take your test in field flow.